a ton of buffs, especially to the snipers. We got some nerfs, including a Growl and an MP5 nerf, and some other changes too. So today we're breaking down the best loadouts to use after the 1.23 patch. Now, first things first, just keep in mind these setups are specifically meant for Warzone. I'm gonna be honest, I feel like the meta changed a bit more over in multiplayer, just because more weapons are more viable over there, since the TTK is not as long, since obviously there's no armor. So these are Warzone specific loadouts. However, if you guys want to see a video on the new best multiplayer setups to use after this patch, just let me know by leaving a like and or a comment on this video. Also, if you're new here, we are always covering the latest Call of Duty news, intel, updates, class setups, pretty much everything that has to do with Call of Duty, you'll find it right here. So feel free to subscribe with your notifications turned on to stay up to date with all of that. Anyways, getting into the first setup, this is a class that I now think is even closer to being that #1 loadout in the game thanks to that ground nerf, as this consists of the M4A1 pretty much only took place on the 10mm ammo for the most part, which is something I wouldn't recommend in Warzone in the first place. So while the range was decreased a bit, it really is not super noticeable in most fights where you want to be using the MP5 anyways. And of course, the M4A1 was not touched in this update, meaning while the Growl got slightly worse, the M4A1 stayed the same, which just brings it even closer to being equal with the Growl overall. So on the M4A1, here I am using the monolithic suppressor. You guys know the drill by now, this is basically a mandatory attachment at this point. Then I've got the Grenadier barrel, which gives it better range and control, the Commando foregrip to help stabilize the recoil some, the 60-round mags, and the classic Stippy Grippy, the stipple grip tape. However, if you do want a bit more range, you could always swap the stipple grip tape out for the VOK 3x optic. Then on the MP5, I am still using my go-to setup here from before the update, consisting of the monolithic integral suppressor, the Merc foregrip, the 45-round mags, the stipple grip tape, and also the collapsible stock, which overall is really ideal for those CQC fights, whereas the M4 can really handle those medium and long-range engagements, making this loadout very balanced, I guess you could say.
Now, for the perks and equipment, per usual, this is the same on all of my loadouts, so we'll just go over it once here. But I am running EOD overkill and amps, however,
as always, we do use the second loadout to grab a class that has EOD, Ghost, and amped, so that we can stay off the radar late game. Then I do also use the C4 and the heartbeat sensor per usual. Now, loadout number 2 is all about one of my favorite weapons as of late, the Kilo 141. And for the sake of expanding on some classes a bit more, here I am using the MP7, which I would say is probably the number 2 SMG in the game, and much like the M4A1 compared to the Growl, the MP7 I would say is now a lot more competitive because of that MP5 nerf. Then, the Kilo I would argue is like the 3rd best AR in the game. Truly, I think a lot of people are sleeping on it, but this thing has next to no recoil, great damage, great range, and all around, you can't really go wrong with it. So here I've got the monolithic suppressor again, the Prowler barrel for better range and control, the Commando foregrip, the 60-round mags, and also the VOK 3x optic, which gives it some better recoil stabilization, and also some better visibility at a greater range. Then on the MP7, we've got the monolithic suppressor, I know, crazy idea. Then I've got the recon barrel, the tac laser for better stability and mobility, the 60-round mags, and also the grip tape that is stippled. Now, loadout number 3 today actually features the brand new sniper, the Rytec AMR, more so to inform you guys of how I think this sniper plays in Warzone and what exactly the best class is for it. Now, I do have the Growl and the Rytec AMR on this class, which really is not the normal setup I'd have with the Growl. Usually that is going to be paired with the MP5 instead, but for the sake of giving this new sniper a go, I wanted to see how it played, and just in case I wasn't a fan, I wanted to make sure I had a solid secondary here too. So, quickly when it comes to the Growl, yes, it got nerfed, yes, the go-to class for it got nerfed. Is it incredibly worse and no longer the king of Warzone? Absolutely not. The recoil increase, I would say, is slightly noticeable. However, once you learn that new recoil pattern, it is still very easy to control, and the range doesn't really feel all that much worse, at least in my mind. Now, as for the Rytec AMR, apparently as of right now, the damage properties are actually a bit buggy, so the regular ammo should be stronger in the future when that gets updated. But as of now, I think this is a very niche sniper in a way. To me, this thing is just not super viable in Warzone as a specific sniper. It is definitely better over in multiplayer, but while the sniper is not great at being a regular sniper per se, I think it is very good at being sort of a deterrent. What I mean by that is that when you use the explosive rounds, which by the way, they are glitched right now, so if you have them on, you're not going to earn any weapon XP, so make sure you max it before you put those on there. But when you do use the explosive rounds, you suddenly become a major problem for people who are camping, people who are in vehicles, and anyone who tries to push you through a round of explosions. Essentially, when you use this sniper with the explosive rounds, you gain the upper hand in a gunfight simply off of fear alone. Because when an enemy gets hit by that, and not only are they taking damage from the actual shots, but the explosion as well, they're not going to be so confident in pushing you. So just take that into consideration when using the Rytech. So, for the attachments here, on the Grau I've got the suppressor that, of course, is monolithic, the Archangel barrel, which is still the go-to barrel in my mind, the Commando foregrip. However, if you really don't like the new recoil, Merc foregrip is also a solid option. Then I have the 60-round mags and the VOK 3x optic, but that could also be swapped out for the tac laser if you want some more mobility. Then on the Rytech, I've been using the Rytech AMR suppressor, the 7 straight barrel, the explosive rounds as mentioned, the stipple grip tape, and also the VOK 3x optic, just because I'm not a huge fan of the default sniper scope. However, once the damage properties do actually get fixed, I'll probably change to the regular ammo and then use that extra spot either on the tac laser or on the stock that increases the ADS speed. Then, getting into loadout number 4, this one is all about the CR56 AMAX and the HDR. And yes, the AMAX did also get nerfed a bit with the 1.23 updates, but again, it was not the most impactful nerf in the world, and this is still an incredibly strong AR when it comes down to it. And the HDR is still the #1 sniper in the game in my mind because of its range and power. So on the AMAX, I've got the monolithic suppressor, the Zodiac barrel for better range and control, the Ranger foregrip or the Merc foregrip, both are pretty much the same here, the 45-round mags, and also the VOK 3x optic to round things out there. Then we've got the standard setup with the HDR, consisting of the monolithic suppressor, the Pro barrel, the tac laser, the variable zoom scope, and finally the Stalker Scout stock for a faster ADS speed. Now, loadout number 5 features yet another incredibly underrated weapon. That of course is the Bruin Mark 9. And here you can use just about any secondary you want, whether it be the MP5, the HDR, the MP7, you name it, and it's going to work just fine. Now, the Bruin is basically an assault rifle in disguise as an LMG, and it feels very similar to the Kilo in my opinion, and I would say the Bruin is probably the best LMG that we have in the entire game. So, here I've got the monolithic suppressor, the Summit barrel since it is the biggest one we've got, and thus it's going to be the best at a longer range. Then I've got the Commando foregrip, the 60-round mags which really increase the overall mobility, and finally the VOK 3x optic for the same reasons as before. Then I did want to have one sort of honorable mention today, because this weapon did seem to get a lot better with the 1.23 patch. And what I'm talking about here is the FAL. So this thing now has the potential to one-shot headshot if you have stopping power rounds equipped and the enemy's health is not completely full. And its damage in general is incredibly good, all things considered. So on the FAL, I've got the monolithic suppressor for one last time today, the marksman barrel, the Merc foregrip since when you spam this thing, its kick can be pretty rough. Then I do also have the 30-round mags, which unfortunately is the biggest magazine option we have, and finally the VOK 3x optic yet again. So yeah, honestly the meta didn't really change all that much overall. The Grau and the MP5 are definitely still the best weapons in their respective categories, but I will say, I think the meta sort of expanded here, and now more weapons are more viable because of some of the buffs, but I don't think any weapons really became unusable in any way, shape, or form. Anyways, with all of that being said, those are effectively the new best loadouts to use in Warzone after the 1.23 update. And that is going to wrap things up for today. If you guys enjoyed the video, or if you just found it helpful, let me know by dropping a like on it. And of course, if you're new here, and you want to stay up to date with the latest Call of Duty news, intel, updates, leaks, and pretty much everything in between, feel free to subscribe with your notifications turned on. That way you'll